So many podcasters, investors are talking about flipping real estate. We're going to be talking about flipping dirt and how much easier, how much harder, and how much different it can be. Here with Mike Deaton, who is a coach, investor, and a guru who on flipping dirt. You can follow him on Flipping Dirt on podcasts, flippingdirt.us. Mike Deaton, welcome to the program.
Joe, thanks so much. I'm excited to be on the show and talk all things flipping dirt.
All things dirt. You know, it's super interesting. Again, what I've seen, mostly people talking about flipping houses, buying and holding single family, multi-units and all that. Your journey is an interesting one that got you to flipping dirt. Can you give us a little history on how you got here?
Yeah, of course. It was really kind of a big transformation for me. So my wife and I were both corporate people. You know, we worked in big tech companies for decades. And in 2016, we both found ourselves laid off, let go. Her job was consolidating operations. We were living in Dallas-Fort Worth at the time. They moved their headquarters, kind of shrinking a little bit in a healthcare company. I was with Microsoft and similar thing. I mean, we had a small office in Dallas-Fort Worth area in the division that I ran, which was more operations and supply chain, and things were going back to Washington. I didn't want to go to Washington. And so I took a leave, and, you know, rather than our immediate reaction really was to get back in the workforce. It was like, okay, we got to work our LinkedIn network, start reaching out. And, you know, pretty quickly I had a few interviews with other big tech companies. Well, okay, most of them are on the West Coast. So Apple, Amazon, their operations are all over. However, at the time, a lot of what they were ramping up were logistics facilities in, you know, not premier places that you would want to live. So they're often other places. And so I went on a few screening interviews, some follow-up interviews, and I just had a nagging, you know, sinking knot in my stomach of what kind of company culture am I going to step into? Am I going to have to reinvent myself? All these kind of questions were swirling around in my head. And in parallel, about, you know, 1 or 2 years previously, I had reread Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So it kind of reawakened this cash flow mindset and real estate. I was digesting podcasts like this, which are great ways to introduce yourselves to different topics, understand the ins and outs of certain things. And in that course, I heard a couple of different people that were in land flipping. And they were talking about just the incredible return on investment that they were making, which seemed a little outlandish as you hear it, somebody talk about it. I was intrigued enough to do a little bit of research. I bought what was referred to as a toolkit. It was basically kind of a primer on how to get started, but I was working full time. And so I never even looked at it. It came back then, it came in the mail. It was a big binder. It had DVDs in it. It had, you know, worksheets, and it just sat on my desk collecting dust. And you know, in that moment, my wife, Lydia, and I, we were comfortable enough. We had a little bit of a runway. I got a nice severance out of my workplace. We weren't super pressured into just taking a knee-jerk reaction and doing something. And so we really took that time to do some inner work. We reflected on what were our values. What did we want out of this next phase of our lives? And, you know, none of that pointed to a corporate job where I was already traveling 25 to 50% of the month. I had a large team spread out over the Americas. It just wasn't the lifestyle that we envisioned. And, you know, I tell the story that for us, a few factors lined up. And so, you know, one, we were forced to do something. But beyond that, we had 2 adultish children that were just about to go off to college, and some doors opened that allowed us this flexibility to reinvent ourselves with the lower risk tolerance. Like I, you know, am a provider. I always was concerned about, you know, I had ideas about doing entrepreneurial things, but there's always this fear of, well, what happens to my family if money dries up or whatever. And so it was in that moment that we just really said, hey, let's go for it. And so we kind of did what we've done a few times before, but we knew we wanted to do this full time. And so we found a mentorship program, got a coach, found a community of other like-minded people, and immersed ourselves in this. I come from operations and supply chain background. And so the business side of things, you know, was very good at structuring our days and our weeks and goals and looking at, you know, profit and loss and budgetary things. And so we kind of had this package of being able to do that. But that's that's essentially how we found it. We just really did a little bit of research. We reflected on our why and our purpose and what we wanted out of life. And it looked like this business is one that can be done, remotely. You work from home. We can, we buy and sell land anywhere in the US. You don't have to go put your feet on it. There are tools.
Let's this. You just gave me so much to ask right here. Hold on.
Sure, let's drill into anywhere.
Yeah. All right. So you had a mentor, and now fast forward to where you are right now. You are that mentor, correct?
Yes.
You are that person that is bringing opportunities to many others around the country, if not beyond the country.
Sure.
And what just blew my mind that you said was land, doing real estate, work from anywhere. It's dirt. How do you know its value if you're buying something across the country?
There are many. So when we started our business, we were familiar with the adage, do business in your backyard, in a place where you have boots on the ground that can help you or that you're familiar with. And so we took that approach, and we were in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and we started casting a net in surrounding markets, not in the Dallas-Fort Worth area proper, but within a few hours outside. And it wasn't super easy, and it kind of went against some of what we now espouse as conventional ways to go about finding a market. But with land, there are so many tools available. And to your point, it is land, and you don't have to check structural items or other things. I mean, probably our only, if not the biggest regret that we have when we started our business, is we were overly picky. Like, we were really selective about the prop. We would get people willing to sell us their land for great deals, but we'd look and go, oh, it's a little bit sloped, or, maybe it's not attractive to us. It's got, no trees or whatever. And when we look back, we would have bought anything and everything almost that we could get our hands on. So, there's only a few red flags for us when we do our due diligence. And it's really not so much to do with the land, but with, what are there any back taxes? Are there liens against the property? Is the title clean? It's really ownership related and a little bit of the finances. When we look at comparables, which really the core of this business model is all in our model is buying properties under the market value so that we can just resell it instantaneously and make a profit. We don't have to, renovate units or flip a home or do anything, right? You're just getting a deal. And so the very first part of that is just understanding what is land selling for in a certain area. And it's not that complicated. I mean, many states publish their sales data. So you can actually go in and see in a certain market, what is property selling for? Other states, Texas, for instance, is a non-disclosure state. So they don't disclose sales information, but you can look at what's for sale today and go for things. And so the way we learned the model and the way we still teach the model is we go in, we'll evaluate comps. So we'll grab 20 or 30 or 40 comparables, do some analysis, and we go in and make offers that are anywhere from 30 to 50% of market value. So there's a lot of room for error in that process.
And are these properties you just going directly to the owner, or are they sitting on a market somewhere?
We are, I will say, exclusively off-market deals. And so, yes, it's a direct-to-owner business. I mean, most of the time, if somebody's got it listed on market, they're either asking the market value or a very small percentage there. And so it's hard, especially if there's a realtor involved and there's other things. And so, yeah, we're, I'll say exclusively, there may be some exceptions, but we're going direct to owners. We're just doing direct outreach. There's a few different ways to go about doing that. And it's a game. I mean, we'll reach 1,000 people and maybe we'll get 2, 3, 4% take rate. But the margins are so good on these properties that, the math works out at that rate. And we only want people that are really willing to part. Now, all things come with a little bit of perspective. So this is in a certain zone, let's say properties that are valued at 50,000 or less. Once you start getting a little higher value than that, then you can play with the margins because net, you're going to be making a good return. And so even if you just make 10% on a deal or 15%, it's worth chasing some of those because, you're still going to make 15,000 or 20,000 or something on a deal. So the math skews a little bit as you get up in value, and people are less open to liquidate their property once you get a little higher value as well.
And do you coach people to start out at a certain price point or a certain type of property? Is it mostly residential, commercial?
Yeah. So these are all great questions. And I'm going to rewind just a little bit. So, maybe 2 years ago, my wife and I had enough people asking us what we do, how do we do what we do, could we help them get started, that we gave serious thought to kind of putting our own program together. And one of the questions we asked was, can we offer something different that's in the market? Because there are a few other coaching programs out there. We went through one when we started our business. And, when we went through ours, it was very clinical. It was almost a one size fits all approach. And it also didn't have what I call more of the softer skills of coaching, where you're checking with people's mindsets. How is their motivation? Because as an entrepreneur, that's really 90% of the ball game right there is how are you dealing with resistance and obstacles and things like that. And so we decided to put our coaching program together, and really we do more of a bespoke or a custom type coaching program. And so the first thing we do with new clients is we will sit down with an intake session and we look at how much money do they have access to. Some people have no money to invest in properties, and land can be done that way. There's a way to use just sweat equity and hustle to get deals done. Other people have a lot of equity that they can, or a lot of capital that they have access to that they can invest. Some people have very little time. They just want to side hustle. They want to create a little bit of income. Some people want to go all in like we did and do full time. So there are various combinations that steer you into certain markets. There are markets in New Mexico and West Texas where land is incredibly cheap. You can buy small parcels. You can spend a few $100s. It takes a bit longer to scale up, but there's a way to start that way. There are other clients we have that we can go into more, effective type targets where we look at, okay, let's buy properties for 20,000, sell them for 40, and they can make larger leaps. And so we really try to customize the approach based on whoever comes to us and in that way. And so, all those factors come into play because, like I mentioned, there's just a range of land from, $1 million ski properties to the West Texas dirt.
Right. And I'm sure every investor that's doing this is different from the next.
Right.
Time frame, ramp up their goal.
Yes. It's just like any other investing or business. There's a lot of different risk tolerances. You can use leverage very easily in this business because the margins are so high. Some people do that. We don't use a lot of leverage. We just have always used our own capital, and we keep it clean and that way. So yeah, I mean, there's so many different investor type profiles out there and that's really the beauty of this business in relation to other real estate asset classes is it is super flexible. I mean, you can get in and run the business in any way you want. It's also been one of the great things about coaching is we have a lot of clients who go off and do things in a different way. And we're like, oh, wow, I never even thought about that as a way to go about it and stuff. So it's really good in that way.
Now, you mentioned this friction in doing this. And I saw on your YouTube channel, you had some golden rules to follow. And I'd love you to share those if you remember doing that. It was about a year ago.
It's been a minute, but I would say some of the golden rules, I don't know if I'll get all of them, but like some of the golden rules are what I just mentioned. In real estate, they say you make your money on the buy. In land flipping, it's exclusively on the buy. I mean, you just need to be setting your price at the right point, and then you make a really good profit. There are some consistent habits to build that we've found. Really, it's making offers on the acquisition side and marketing. If you can find a cadence, like when we started out, I think we were doing 50 a week or something. And we were actually physically printing out letters, stuffing them in envelopes, licking stamps and taking them to the mailbox. Now we have a virtual service that we just send a file to and they do all the printing and mailing. There's other services even. There are some services that do calling. They call people, they text people. There's a lot of things popping up, but mail is still the most cost effective that we found so far. But offers and marketing is kind of the other big, just building a consistent pattern. And what we have found is, if we're not consistent with that, our business really becomes disjointed and everything. And so we don't do it weekly so much today. A lot of times we will, but sometimes we'll the service that we use, we can send them, 10,000 names and say, hey, send 250 a week or whatever for the next. So really makes it easy to bulk things up. So staying consistent. And then I would say due diligence is the other area where you can kind of lose your way. And so we have templates and checklists and we coach our clients on key things to look for I mentioned a few of the big ones, like you want to make sure the owner is the owner and they have the right to sell the property. Taxes, liens are other ones. And then just, anything that might cloud up the title. Zoning, property condition, those are to a lesser extent important,
Really?
but due diligence is kind of the other one.
That surprises me that the zoning would not be part of the big formula.
Yeah. Well, and so a lot of times when we are targeting offers, we do that work up front. And so we'll go into a county or a market and we'll look. And whenever we're getting a list of owners, which the counties are the ultimate owner of record keeping because they send tax bills, at least annually, if not more than that. And so there's other list services, but they all get the information from the county. And each county is a little bit different, but they all classify their property by zones. And so you have residential, you have rural residential, agriculture, then you have your, commercial and different things. And so usually we're doing that work up front when we decide what type of properties we're going into. And so we know in a sense that it's at least already classified in a certain way. You can, if you get into, if you're in rural properties, it's not that big of a deal. But if you get into more urban areas, then sometimes there is a bit more nuance that we need to key in on. But again, what we've found is literally any type of property, there's a buyer out there for it. I mean, I have so many stories of properties that I would have thought would never sell, on the side of a mountain, swampland, whatever. Somebody wants that property. You just have to find them. Somebody wants to go shoot their guns out in nowhere where nobody can be around. Somebody wants to ride their ATV on swampland, whatever. I mean, it's a little creativity and making sure you're buying at the right price because
going back to the golden rules, one of the ones that caught my attention was mindset and being able to stay in this game because it's not, you were making it sound like it's easy. And my guess is there's some stress coming along in this.
Yeah. I mean, as with most things, the business model itself is very simple, but it's not easy, right? I mean, you have, especially when we started out, we wore all the hats. We were doing things end to end. And now we leverage resources and systems and teams. But yeah, we in a program, there were other people like us starting out their businesses. And as with anything, some people go faster. Some people have luck sooner. It took us 6 months. We acquired some properties, but it took us 6 months to figure out our sales mentality and get that going. And so, yeah, as I mentioned, that for us was the hardest thing for us to work through was just the tenacity to stay in and let the system work. And then once we cracked that, the floodgates opened. And so, we go through that. But last year, 2024, it was a tough market across the board in real estate, even in land. We felt a bit of a slowdown. We were able to buy properties and acquire deals, but the sales side of things slowed down a little bit. And I don't know why that is or what that is, if it was just seasonality, if it's an election year, if it's whatever. I mean, it is what it is. Now, at the end of December, we felt things really surge back and people going. But there is definitely, I mean, it's an end-to-end business. And across that business, there's going to be some hiccup. And so it is about staying in the game and a mindset perspective. That's one of my favorite topics. I love personal development and growth and all of that. And so I bring that into our coaching program a lot, just trying to make sure I'm keying in on people's attitudes and where are they meeting resistance. But yeah, mindset's a big one. But if you compare this to multifamily or triple net leasing or single family homes or rentals or whatever, it's so much simpler. I mean, we laugh. There are no land emergencies in the business. You're not getting calls at the middle of the night that say, oh, yeah, my toilet's plugged up or the property manager didn't show up or whatever. I mean, we've done some multifamily and it's put the gray in my hair just from stuff there. So for the simplicity and, there's no investors to mess with, all that kind of stuff that goes with it. And so, there definitely is a mindset component, but I would say it's leaps and bounds different than anything else in the real estate world.
That sounds like it. So you also mentioned that cash flow was part of this. And is that meaning you have something flipping every month, or how does cash flow work on a piece of dirt?
Well, yeah, that gets a lot of people. There are a few different ways to sell properties in the land business, similar to like, let's say single family or flipping homes. There's a middle layer of wholesale market in between. So like if we get lean on inventory, we can turn to a wholesale market and buy properties for more than we would pay if we were reaching out directly to an owner, but it's still less than market value. And so, you shave a little bit of your profit margin, but you're still able to make a healthy profit. On the flip side of that, some people like to go out and acquire, like every once in a while, we'll find landowners that have 20 properties, or, there are people that have hundreds of properties. And sometimes you can work a deal and just get great value. And then you can sell those into the wholesale market and make quick cash back. But largely, if you're running the end-to-end business model, there's kind of two different ways to sell properties. One is just a cash deal, like you would imagine. You have a property, I'm going to sell it for $25K. Somebody comes to the table and they give you $25K. But probably 90% of what we do is we will owner finance property. And so we will carry the note. And so if I sold you a property for that same property for $25K cash, maybe I'll sell it for $40K on terms. But it's technically like an interest payment. We don't charge interest. We prefer to discount for cash buyers. But somebody pays us $500 a month, $700 a month for 4 or 5 years. And so, over the years, we've stacked up dozens of those clients. And now we have a monthly recurring revenue, or a cash flow.
Nice.
That, things can get slow for a while. And we've still got a healthy income that we can count on for years to come. Now, those deals expire, right? You sign up for a 5-year note. Well, at the end of the 5 years, your payments are done. We deed over the land to you, and that payment's done. But now it's really just about replacing the few that are going to expire each quarter or each year or something. And then we're able to build on it still as well. And so, yeah, I mean, it's our preferred way to do it, because I like the stability of a monthly revenue coming in. Other people like to just flip for cash and let the money accelerate over time, which is, another way to do it. But we find that we can sell a lot more properties because there's a lot more buyers that are open to pay $500 a month than there are that have access to 25 or 30K to be able to do that. So yeah, that when we say cash flow, that's kind of where our cash flow comes from. But yeah, a lot of people are like, how do you get cash flow from land?
Owner financing is underutilized in many respects.
On both sides, honestly. I mean, not so much in the land business, but I do know people that do it that way. I mean, it's important to understand, whether you're in land or single family or multifamily, somebody that's selling, understand their motivation, because some people are very open to owner finance at great terms because maybe they don't want a big chunk of money all at once. They just want some stuff. And yeah, it's a great one on both the buy side and the sell side.
Talk about your coaching program. What's your perfect client?
Well, our kind of ideal client that we have worked with over the past year and a half really has some understanding of real estate. A lot of times they are real estate professionals. They're either working in syndications or maybe they have a brokerage and they just want some steady cash flow or better deal flow to help bridge the gap in between deals. And I would say that's more our ideal person. But honestly, the business model is super simple. We know a lot of people and have worked with people from, retirees that just want a little extra income to people that want to totally leave their W-2 jobs like we did. Really, anybody can do this with a laptop and a little bit of common sense.
What can they expect from the program coming in? What's it look like?
Yeah. So our program, the way we have it designed is we kind of have 3 tenets. So we have an on-demand educational series that clients get lifetime access to. It's a series of videos. It teaches the end-to-end core, we call it the foundations program, but it gives you the foundations of land flipping. And so it also comes with all of the templates, checklists, scripts, if you want to use sales scripts, offer letters, everything that we use today, we've packaged up and put in this program. And so it's kind of a turnkey solution to getting educated and being able to run the business. We also have a private community where our clients interact, and we do some group sessions where recently we leveraged a service that was using AI agents to text landowners and work acquisitions. And we kind of gave our feedback and some things on that. So we have a community aspect of things where people can bounce ideas off of one another. We host Q&As and different things like that. And then we have the one-on-one coaching that comes with it as well, where, as I mentioned earlier, we sit down and personalize an approach and go side by side with somebody for up to 12 months. But usually people are often running 3, 4, 5 months in. We're kind of intensive in that first period where some people want to have weekly sessions. Other people are every other week or whatever. But like I said, it's kind of a personalized approach just to guarantee your success. I mean, as long as you're showing up, we're sitting by your side and making sure that you practice the foundations, really, because until you go through the process, it's hard to internalize. I mean, when we went through our coaching program, it was like a fire hose. And then, 2 months later, we hit a scenario that we learned, it was 6 weeks ago. And we're like, okay, what are we supposed to do here and stuff? So it's really just making sure that people have that access to our expertise and insights as they go through problems. So it's really those three aspects of things. I already touched on the fact that, when somebody signs up, we'll do an intake and we'll make sure that we get a personalized approach, that they have good goals set, that, we understand what are they after? Do they need quick cash today? Are they okay to build up a monthly recurring stream like we did? What's the situation? And make sure that we get them steered in the right direction.
Fantastic. You mentioned that you don't need a lot of money to get involved. It's easy.
It certainly helps. Yeah, it certainly helps, but have to. I mean, there are ways. I'll be sensitive around using the term brokering because it's not technically brokering, but there are ways. Like if we have properties for sale and you say, hey, I've got a buyer over here that he's going to buy from you, our property. Well, you can net, it's called land arbitrage, but basically, you make the sale. And if we're offering $500 a month payment, you get him to pay $600 a month for a certain, you can pocket the 100 and we kind of work a three-way contract. So there's different ways to do it. It's a different way to go about it. But yeah, I mean, there's a way to come at anything.
So there's probably creativity around this.
It is. And there's it's a whole cottage industry of different things. There's land specific systems, tools, automation, or there's just good old fashioned legwork. It's really anything you want it to be.
Now, what has this led to? You said you like to work from anywhere. Are you on the road a lot? Are you living your life like you didn't think you could?
I am, honestly. We started this business, I guess, late 2016. We officially got started in 2017. We moved to Colorado just because we wanted to enjoy nature and the outdoors while we were young enough to do it. We rented for about 3 or 4 years while we scouted where we wanted to live about 3 years ago. And so we set visions, right? 10-year vision, 5-year annual goals. And yeah, I would say we achieved a lifestyle that I won't say that we achieved a lifestyle we didn't imagine, but we achieved it faster than we imagined. And so, yeah, we live in the mountains here in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado. We have deer and turkey, running around the house every day. We're not on the road very often. It's hard to get us out of our house. So we go visit family. One of Lygia is from Romania. So when I worked over there for about 3 years and where we met and got married. And so I kind of snatched her back here to the US, but we go back once a year. We'll spend a month or 5 weeks visiting her family. And, we can steer the business from there. Monthly income still comes in. It's great. I mean, the lifestyle for us is incredible. And now we like to give back through the coaching program. That definitely takes time, right? We're working directly with people, spending hours a week on group calls, on one-on-one calls, marketing, doing all the things there. But it's really a labor of love. I mean, it's watching other people go through the same transformation that we were able to go through is so rewarding. And it's just a great way to give back.
Sounds fantastic. So somebody's watching this, they want to get started, they want to learn more. What do you recommend?
Go to our website, flippingdirt.us. It's not on the menu, but if you go to flippingdirt.us/freedom, we have a landing page where we have a couple of ebooks that you can download that talk about how to make money in land, how to get started in land. You can see what our coaching program looks like. I just published a book a month or so ago. There's a link where people can pick that up on Amazon. It's kind of a one-stop shop. It has our contact information. You can schedule a call if you want to schedule a call, talk more about it. So flippingdirt.us/freedom is probably the best way to go about. And then people can get in touch however they want to get in touch from there.
Fantastic. Any last words, Mike? This has been great.
Yeah, I mean, I encourage anybody really just to take action. I mean, it took a kind of a significant act for us to take action. But if you're interested in something, whether it's land or I talk to a lot of people who don't know how to get started, like they're kind of wrapped around the axle about, should I do single family, multifamily, commercial, land, whatever. Just go with one. Like, I mean, that we've done that a few times in our life and you can always pivot, but land is a great starting point. It really is a way to build up cash pretty quickly. And you can use it as a gateway to get into something else if you want. We come back to it all time and again because we just like a kind of a stress-free, peaceful lifestyle. But, I encourage people, 2025 is a year to take action. there's never been a better time in the history of mankind to do anything you want to do. There's so many tools and systems and education. And I mean, it's almost too much at this point, I think, which is what paralyzes a few people,
Yeah.
but just get started.
Yeah, never a better time for analysis paralysis.
This is true too. Yes.
Just do it. Fantastic. Mike, thanks so much for sharing your story and all this great information. And if you are interested as a viewer, if you like this show, please subscribe. Down the links, you can find Mike's contact information there. Have fun. Be best.